How's it going? Andrew here, and welcome to The Creative Endeavour, the podcast bringing you inspiring stories from creative professionals from around the world. And in this episode, I'm talking to Caleb Brown, who creates some incredible paintings dedicated to his sporting heroes. Now, I've only recently started following Caleb on Instagram after he reached out to me, and I'm really inspired by his approach to the business side of art. He's somebody that is nailing that direct marketing, which we talk about sometimes in this podcast. But he's also a really inspiring guy who has nailed the mindset. And he even delivered a TED Talk, which I really got a heck of a lot out of. So, of course, I wanted to find out more about Caleb, more about his personal story, how he creates his art, and how he works his art business, but also all about the mindset that so many of us creative professionals really need to work on. I think you're going to find Caleb to be a really incredible, inspiring, and energetic guy. And I got a heck of a lot out of this conversation. I hope you will too. So without further ado, here's Caleb Brown in The Creative Endeavour. Well, Caleb, welcome to the Creative Endeavour podcast. It is an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We connected over Instagram. I think you actually reached out to me, and then I started following your work, and then I checked out your TED Talk, and I was really excited about what you were doing. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, about your art, and what has led you up to this point in your journey so far?
Oh man, I'm grateful to be on this show because I've been looking up to you you don't know this, but I've been looking up to you since I started this art thing, which would have been 3 years ago. I went to college in Macon, Georgia. That's about an hour south of Atlanta. And I didn't go to school for art. Like, it was my minor, but it wasn't something I had planned on doing. And then halfway through my senior year of college, like, I made the decision, like, I'm gonna do the art thing full time because I knew I had some artistic ability. But I guess I got to that point in life where I was like, okay, I could go on with the career field I went to school for, or I could go ahead and give the art thing a try and see how it goes. And luckily it's gone really well, and I've been able to do some things. Art has provided me a platform to spread positive messages, gave me a chance to do a TED Talk. And then when I saw you had launched your own vlog or podcast, I was like, well, I might as well ask him, like, hey, can I be on your show? Because, hey, I want to talk to you. And you responded, and I was so hyped up that day. And my friends will tell you, I was like, bro, look at this. He responded. I was like, that's crazy. And so now we're just able to I've done several commissions for, I guess, semi-famous people, some different entertainers, some professional athletes, some college athletes. So we've been able to do some work for some really cool people and just been able to keep it going with the creating. And I'm really grateful to be where I am today. Just trying to grow, man, and trying to learn from people like you and figure out how to do this thing even better. So thank you for having me on.
Look, Caleb, no, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on because, look, man, you're an artist in your own right. You're kicking some major goals here, and forgive the pun, dealing with football themes and all of that. But you know what I really admire, what I really love, especially with people that are much younger, and I hope you don't mind. I'm not trying to patronize at all, but
No.
I find it so ridiculously inspiring is when people like just take the plunge, reach for a goal, just get over the fear and those initial humps that get in the way, and they just really shoot for something. Because at the end of the day, like I know me, and I know what I've been able to do in my career, but the one thing that I've had, I guess, going for me was just kind of this bulldog determination. And I guess one of the things that I saw in you, and when you reached out to me and we connected, I was thinking, yeah, I saw a lot of that story, and I was seeing that here's somebody who's making it work in a unique way. And this is a cool thing about the podcast is reaching out to so many different artists, is every episode I do, I'm seeing a new, unique way of approaching this beast, which is art. It's
Absolutely.
there's no cookie cutter method. And this is the awesome thing about it. So here you are. You were studying full time. You're going to college. You know, you're a pretty sporty guy as well. Hence the
Hmm.
subject matter you deal with. So how do
Yeah.
you find yourself now? Maybe give us a snapshot of your business and how that works. How do you find yourself now being a full time artist? At what age, if you don't mind me asking, Caleb?
I'm 25. I turned 25 this year, so
Dude, see, this is huge. This is huge. This is awesome. So tell us how this works for you now.
so nowadays I work mainly on commission. I never really got into the gallery thing, which I'm not against. It just wasn't my mode of. I felt like with social media and things like that provided me a platform to not need a middleman of sorts. So I've always kind of just operated that way. Word of mouth has been big, and yeah, people hit me up for birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas. You know, I just got several Christmas commissions because the holidays are rolling around. Valentine's Day is obviously another big one. And as far as the sports guys, they normally just see their friends got a painting. And it's like, hey, you did a painting for such and such. Can you do one for me? And I'm thinking about settling in to the sports genre. Like I think I might want to settle in there. When I used to draw and paint when I was a young kid, that was what I liked anyways. And I did play college football in my school. So yeah, I've been playing sports my whole life. So I think that might be the area I want to settle in. It's just a market I kind of like. And so that's kind of where we are now, just really just working on commissions. I'm trying to do some different things, maybe implement some print sales and things of that nature. Just still trying to learn, man. Like, because like you said, there's no cookie cutter. I'm not gonna lie, when I first started, I was trying to figure out what that road was to become the big time artist. And what I found is that there is no clear cut road. It's so different that you really got to find your own way and I guess take from different people and try your best to get it done. But it's definitely been a great journey, and I'm grateful for where we are now, and we're trying to just keep improving, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. There's so many different directions we can go, and we're going to cover all of it. One of the things I heard something recently in a book that I've really enjoyed. I listen to a lot of audiobooks while I'm working, and there's this fantastic book called Art, Money, Success by Maria Brophy. And
I read it.
oh yeah, fantastic, man.
Yeah.
So she had this one section in there about finding your niche and exploiting that niche. And what I found, I mean, look, I don't know if I've done this, but because I'm inspired by everything, but I do know of a lot of people, like yourself, who you find this thing, you settle in on this thing, and what happens is this really interesting feedback mechanism between the market that you're exploiting, but also you're showing up with your passion for that subject. And there's this kind of
Absolutely.
resonance, which then starts to feed into it. And you could end up becoming the big name within a particular genre relatively quickly. I'll give you a name of somebody that I spoke to recently, which was Bethany Veer, who's really keyed into the equine art and the horse theme. And now she's dealing with horsey people, and she's got Olympic gold medalists and people commissioning her to do her work. And it's just extraordinary. But in terms of like a broad appeal, like she is laser focused. And so that's the thing that I find is really, really interesting. So when you're taking your paintings, which are exceptionally well done, they're almost photographic. They're very slick. They got a graphic quality to them. Let's say you got your painting. How do you go about reaching out to a new client, to getting somebody on board?
Oh man, so it really goes back to my first celebrity quote commission was this rap group called Migos in America, and they're really popular. And I was a senior in college, and what I did at that point was I finished the painting first, and then I sent it to everybody in the company, like on via Instagram. Like I sent it to everybody, like everybody and who I could find, and they responded. Well, one of them ended up responding, and that really launched the trajectory of my career because I was like, okay, if I can do it with this group, then I can surely reach out to certain like, and so that's how it's kind of worked for me. And I've just had different connections. Even me being a former athlete, I have connections to guys. I didn't go to a very big school football wise, but I have friends who did, and I do work for them, maybe even complimentary, and then their friends who play in the NFL see that and they're like, hey, I saw what you did for him. Can you do it for me? And that's a strategy. Like I've just realized I made a lot of connections through sports, and that's been a big way for me to kind of expand in that way. And even with some of the other things like the TED Talk, I met a lot of people there, And when they find out you're an artist, they're like, oh man, all right. And then you just reach out. I think what I found was that so many people are scared to put their work out there, scared that, maybe their celebrity favorite person might say it's not good. But I was like, we really have nothing to gain. I already don't know them. So the worst case, they're just not going to see it, or worst case, they don't like it. I still don't know this person personally. So it was like, I have nothing to lose to just put this out there and say, hey, do you like this painting? And that first time, I didn't even really intend to get paid. I really just wanted to give him a painting as a fan, and he paid me. So we started a relationship. That's really, I'm definitely a guy that likes to just send the DMs, get my friends on board, say, hey, tag this person. And that's really, it's worked. Like, I think if you put out a good product, I think if they catch it, they'll say, hey, that's actually kind of nice. Now, that didn't work for like Beyonce or anyone or Drake, but we're working on it.
That's brilliant, man. That's brilliant. Hey, give it time. I think they'll catch on soon enough.
Absolutely.
But that's so inspiring. I mean, I can't tell you how many opportunities I've held myself back from because of the fear that somebody was going to say no. And it took me years, man, to kind of get over that fear of going, no, I'm not going to reach out to that person, or I'm not going to call that company to work with them, or I'm not going to do this because, yeah, what if they say no? And there was this one time where it was really, to be honest, it was Dr. DeMartini who gave me that push that I really needed. And speaking to him directly, he was just like, he said, hey, I think your work would go really well aboard this ship. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Yeah, you'll put in a good word for me, right? And he's like, no. Damn it, you're going to call him. I loved that because as soon as I realized that I had the power, and like you say, man, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? They could say no. How many artists out there? How many creative people? Because we're sensitive people, right?
Absolutely.
How many of us out there are holding ourselves back from opportunities just out of that silly, stupid fear?
That we made up. Like, we just, like, really the worst. Like, there's, because you can still, it's not like they're gonna chop your hands off if they don't like your painting. Like, you can still paint after. You can get better. Like, your life isn't over if one person doesn't like your art. Like, I've done really well, and I've had several paintings that people were just like, you didn't really hit the mark. Like, I don't like it, and that was rough at the time. But the more I get into the business and the older and wiser I grow, I realize that it's not such a big deal if somebody doesn't like it. Like, all you can really control in anything in life is how you perform. And trying to base your success on how somebody else feels is a recipe for disaster. And so I've tried my best, even in recent months, to say, I can't control whether they like this painting or not. All I can do is do my best in this moment and continue to show up regardless of that. Like, even if they don't like it, okay, for the next painting, am I going to still be worried about how that one didn't necessarily go well, or I'm going to keep doing my best? And I think we've lost that a little bit in the creative sphere. And just in general, like, I really wish people, like, just so doggone scared, man. It's like, it really don't matter what they think, because they could be having a bad day and just not necessarily like what you painted. And does that mean you're a bad artist? No. So if anything, just really just try my best to control what I can control. And that's just doing the best that I can with the work that's in front of me.
I appreciate that so much because this is a thing that I think, I struggle with. I know a lot of other artists struggle with is balancing the internal and the external. The internal being those drivers that you should be engaged with, the inspiration, the work itself, and the external are all those factors that we can't control, feedback from others
Yeah.
and is it going to land? Is it not going to land? And I find that, this is almost the impossible thing about balancing this out as a business, because we need to be able to balance both. And yeah, I love what you're saying there. Let's get into the painting side of things. I want to get a little bit more of a snapshot of your journey, because
Absolutely.
it's taken a bit of a bit of a unique track here. I mean, as we're saying, everybody has their
Absolutely.
own unique story. When did you first realize? When did you first learn that you had a knack for drawing and painting? And what was that moment like for you, where you're like, hang on, I really love this?
All right, so when I was a kid, I was always kind of drawing, especially like different anime, comics, things like that, which was just, every kid kind of starts off with some kind of artistic endeavors. But then I ended up being better than a lot of my classmates. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm pretty good. And I pretty much did a lot of pencil drawing well up until, as long as I can remember. Like, I got really good by the time high school. But again, I never thought that it would ever be a professional thing for me. I was like, I'm gonna play in the NFL. Like, I'm not doing this art thing. They don't make no money. I'm not doing that. And the only reason I ever took a painting class, like I hated painting, Andrew. Like I actually did not like painting at all. But my coursework required me to take this painting class. And in that class, I was garbage. Like I was trash. Like I was so bad. And it wasn't until like the last assignment where I did something, I was like, okay, that was decent. But what truly let me know that, okay, maybe I can do this was we had a talent show. Same year, like my senior year of college. And I remember seeing this performance artist named David Garibaldi. You may have seen him, but it's like they go up on stage, play some music, he's dancing and throwing paint on the canvas, and he does a painting, a portrait in like 7 minutes. And I was like, I could do that. So I tried it, and it went well. And at that point, that was the first time, and people wanted to buy my artwork. And that was the first time I ever even gave it any consideration that, okay, maybe I can do this art thing. And then I just practiced, really just went in and tried my hardest to paint some things just to try it out to see how it worked. And of course, that was when I started having those conversations with myself where it's like, okay, I'm really good at this, or at least I got a shot to get better. Like I've only been doing this for some months, and I can probably make a career out of this. Like even if I fail, I think I would still feel a little better trying this than being bored in what I was gonna do. So that was, I would say, probably my senior year. Like I said, I knew I could draw well, but painting allowed me, it took me forever to draw pictures, but I could paint fast or faster than it would take for me to draw a really big drawing. And so these were things that I was like, this painting thing, like, why am I doing this my whole life? And it just got, from a technical standpoint, I just did a lot of practicing, watching videos, and especially yours, like, helped me tremendously with certain things that because I didn't have a formal art education, a lot of these things I had to learn on the fly, and your videos were definitely helpful. And that's kind of how we got to where we are now. So it took really, I guess, 21 years for me to realize that I could paint it all, and here we are now.
Awesome. Don't give me any credit, please.
Man,
I'm addicted to it. I'm addicted to painting, obviously, but I'm addicted to teaching others, and I'm just, okay, I'm going to admit I get a little bit of a buzz out of hearing that from people. Like it's kind of like, yeah,
absolutely.
cool, it worked, because
Yes.
that's the thing. Once I realized that I did have something to offer, I was like, cool, this is having a bit of a positive impact. I try not to focus on it too much, but no, I'm so wrapped. But please don't give me credit, because I can tell,
Mhm.
you're bringing this to bring into your career and your journey your own unique flair. You've obviously got ability, you've got talent, but the thing again that I love about what you're doing is how this is like keying in to that niche, and you're exploiting this thing. And when I say exploit, I mean that in the most positive kind of way. Sometimes
Mhm.
people think exploitation, it's a bad word, but you're taking advantage of a situation you've created. And I think as artists, that's all we're trying to work out how to do. I've said this so many times in the podcast, never been a better time to be an artist. And I see
Absolutely.
people who are thriving in the gallery model, but now with the power that's been put in our hands as individuals, we can kind of bypass the gallery and that
Mhm.
system. There's nobody standing in our doorway saying, no, 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 hang on a second, let me check your work and see if you're good enough. We can now connect directly to buyers.
Exactly.
So I appreciate what you're doing in terms of, you're reaching out to people directly. You're kind of gaining this client base. I'd love to know a little bit more about, you've got from your TED talk, you're a driven guy. Have you got some sort of overarching vision or mission or goal? Like, is goal setting, is something like that? Is achievement something that's important to you? And
Absolutely.
maybe give me a snapshot about your vision and where you want to go with this thing.
So I remember when I first started, my main thing was that I wanted to be able to inspire those people who, what we were talking about earlier, who are just scared. Because when you're in college, you see plenty of kids who are doing it just because it's what they should do or because their parents told them to do it. And I'm walking around campus, I'm like, you look miserable. Like you look miserable studying for whatever you're studying for. Like if you're gonna be miserable, at least be miserable for something you care about, which kind of leads into what I was talking about with the TED Talk. Like you can't avoid suffering in life. So if you're gonna suffer for something you care about. Like you're never gonna escape it. So if you're gonna have to go through hell on earth, then you might as well do it painting a picture at 4 a.m. in the morning when you've been like when you're tired. Like if I'd rather do that than be slaving at a job I don't particularly care for. And so that really turned into a whole new thing where now I'm really interested in the teaching part, the coaching part, really trying to help people develop the mindset, even if they don't want to be an artist, just whatever it is they want to do, to give them the mindset to put them in a position to be successful. Because at one point, I was gonna write the book that says this is how you become a millionaire as an artist. And I haven't figured that out. So so my new thing is like I really just want to try to keep letting the art provide a platform so that I can teach the message that is there's a certain mindset. Success leaves clues, and there's a certain psychological disposition you can have that'll prepare you for success in anything that you do. Everybody has their self-help mantra or whatever it may be, but I think that from my journey, it just provides a different flavor, a little something a little different that might resonate, especially with the creative types, because obviously there's a lot of stereotypes about us that would keep people away from chasing their artistic dreams. And I would hate that. Like, I don't, if you're talented, or if it's something you really love, I would want you to have the confidence to pursue that. And so my mission now is to continue to just learn and grow so that I don't and practice what I preach, so that I can speak from a place of this is something I'm doing actively or something I've done. So when I'm encouraging you guys to do it, I'm not just speculating. Like, I kind of know what the process takes. And that's really what fuels me now, is just trying to give people give them the tools to go through life and do the things they love and just live wholeheartedly, really. And art is definitely providing me that platform to get on stages and tell people that.
Let's get into the weeds a little bit here. You said something there that I really appreciate, because money, especially when we attach money to creativity, and especially any kind of notion or goal or desire that we have to be rich or wealthy, is somehow shunned in certain circles, and other people are, through their own fear and perhaps ignorance, they try and limit other people's reaching out and trying to strive for that financial goal. Now,
Absolutely.
personally, I don't know if I've said this before in the podcast, but hey, I'll say it in this episode. I want to be I want to be rich. I do.
Yeah.
I want to be rich. I want to be wealthy. And that has changed completely, because I didn't used to want that. That wasn't something that was important to me. But the older I get, the more I see it as an absolute necessity. Now, I can hear that that's something that's important to you too, is of going towards. I mean, heck, man, you want to write the book on it. I want to read
Yeah.
that book. So,
Man.
so tell me about this. How do you balance out for yourself that desire for success, for financial gain, and maintaining your creative integrity?
So I think it goes back to what I talked about a little bit earlier. I've been studying a lot of philosophy lately, especially from the Stoic tradition. And one of their main mantras is like, you can only control you, essentially. I can't control anything outside. I can't control who likes my stuff. All I can really control is what I do. And so when I set goals, but I know that I can only focus in this moment on what I'm doing. And that's the day-to-day process. Like, it's the process over the outcome. Yes, I want to make $1 million, but I'm pretty sure that if I made that million, but didn't really work for it, I don't know if I'd be able to enjoy it the same way. And a lot of people may not believe that, but I just find that to be true. Like, I just feel like if I'm true to myself and my moral code, my process, that million will be a lot sweeter. So I think with the main is just keeping the main thing. That's how I kind of keep everything in perspective. Because again, I can't control when that $1 million client is gonna walk in my door. But like, I got control, but I don't. Like, I can only truthfully control what I do, who I reach out to, and so that's normally how I try to keep things in perspective. And that's kind of new, actually. And I'm at a lot more peace with that mindset than maybe how I would have operated in the past, which was just in constant chase mode and trying to make things happen, and being disappointed because I can't will them to happen. So doing a better job of just, I'll say it again, keeping the main thing the main thing.
I heard that in a Brendan Bouchard book, which is fantastic. I'm trying to remember what you'll know the name of it, because maybe you got it from Brendan Bouchard. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing.
Oh, really?
Or maybe
Actually,
a lot of people have said that, but
yeah,
I
I got that from I actually got that from this American football player named Jalen Hurts. He's been saying it all season, and I've been loving it because I'm like, Yeah, he gets it. Like he gets it. That guy gets it. Like
yeah,
we can't control what the media says about our team. Like we can't control what they say in the newspaper about Caleb or Andrew. All we can control in our particular field is how we approach our process painting wise. And
yeah,
you know, all he can control is how he plays the game. So
yeah.
I love it.
The reality that I found, when I started out and I was setting goals, and again, I kind of oscillate between, being very deliberate about my goals and being very future focused, and then
Hmm.
being very present and process driven. And
Hmm.
so the thing I found when I first started out, I was like, I just want to keep the gig going. So whatever a goal allows me, or whatever financial goal, as soon as we're talking about money as well, whatever financial goal allowed me to just sustain my production, that's all I wanted
Hmm.
to do. And now, since I've achieved that, and that's been the norm now for several years, I just thought, well, now it's time to up that goal. Because I found that if I'm not growing, if I'm not going to that next level, if I'm not reaching for the next rung on the ladder, so to speak,
Hmm.
that it stifles my creativity. That
Absolutely.
there's something about that kind of I feel hemmed in, held back, and not living up to my full potential. And so this has been something that I've been trying to focus on a little bit more, is having ambitious but achievable goals, and again some financial goals. But this was a thing I struggled with. Maybe you could reflect on this as well, because I imagine it's similar also for a lot of people that are listening. I really I felt dirty somehow in wanting to have financial abundance.
Hmm.
It took me a long time to kind of get over that and realize that this was actually the reality of the world that we live in, and something that I actually needed. That the more I had, the more I had to give in many
Hmm.
different ways. But I imagine that's going to be different for all kinds of people out there. But I think one of the things as creatives, as artists, the thing that I'm impressed with you again, and I don't say that to patronize at all, Caleb, but the thing that impresses me is like you're dialed in, man. You just seem to get this right off the bat. Whereas a lot of people will even if they don't consciously say that, they'll subconsciously undermine their progress and their
Hmm.
success because they feel somehow that money or going for finances is not an acceptable thing for an artist.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people that are limiting themselves in that way? How would you get them to step up?
It's like, because it's one of those things where it's like money is a good thing because I think, again, it depends on your character, obviously. I know that Caleb Brown doesn't want a lot of money just to engage in just random pleasures. I know that more money allows me more options, options to create more work, buy cooler materials, new cameras, whatever it may be, a chance to make this business better so that we can then help other people more. Just like you say, the more we have, the more we can give. Like literally giving money, or like you say, being able to create better content for people who care. And so again, I don't have no problem because I know my motives. Like I know who I am. I know that giving money, like I'm not just using it to be evil. Like I know that that money is just for even when I have kids one day. It's so I can make sure that my kids have everything that they could possibly need to be successful. These are the things I'm thinking about. My future wife, same thing, like making sure she's taken care of and she can achieve her dreams if because money isn't going to buy the happiness, but I'm definitely thinking that again, money definitely gives you options to for better struggles. Let's put it that way. Since I said it earlier, you can't really get rid of suffering, but money allows you to go into cooler realms of suffering that, but do even cooler things that matter to you. Like you take a lot more risks. Like it's just there's nothing wrong with it. And that's why I don't understand why people would even think that. Like nobody tells a doctor, hey, you shouldn't be making money, or any other profession that makes a lot of money. They're not going to be like, hey, I don't think professional athletes, well, we shouldn't really pay you that much. Like that's why I don't understand. Like I don't get it. Like everybody should have an opportunity to make as much money as they want to. So I would tell them, I just say keep your motives. Remember, money just allows you options, man. So definitely don't turn that away just because it's been a stereotype in this field for the longest.
I think part of what's happening here and part of the dynamic why people are kind of subconsciously shunning it or pushing it away is because still, even today in this day and age, we're obsessed with that romantic notion of the starving artist, of somebody who's suffering for their creativity, somebody who is really they're doing it for the right reasons, and they're doing it because it's all about the idea and the art, and it's this passionate figure. Maybe Van Gogh was a really good example of that. Somebody who is dialed in creatively, but a total
Man,
mess. A total mess, So
like it's
for me personally, I think that, again, DeMartini, I'm such a fan of his, and also people like Tony Robbins, these personal development giants. What they taught me as an artist and as a creative is that there are multiple facets to my life, to my creative being, and that what it's about for me and my responsibility as a creative professional is to empower each and every one of those facets so that no area is lacking, or at least
exactly.
no our area is out of control, and takes away from my creativity. Because if my health isn't right, I'm not going to be
Hmm.
painting my best. If I'm stressed
Precisely.
about how I'm going to pay the tax, I'm not painting my best. If I just had a fight with a wife, I'm not painting my best. Like, everything feeds back into that creativity. So
Exactly.
it's about creating the whole person, right?
Exactly. Because I remember even sometimes early on where I wasn't making as much money, starting out. And I remember how stressful that was to create. And yeah, honestly, you got to take a lot of bad jobs then too. If we have more money, or if we can make $50,000 on a painting, then I have a little room to figure, okay, what do I want? What can I paint that's going to make my heart sing now? Because I think that was because I realized early on, again, it's a real slippery slope from taking when commissions is your only funnel, is that it turns into a regular 9 to 5 really quickly, because now you're just painting things that people want you to paint constantly. And I was like, this isn't fun. And it was because at the time I just needed the money, because I didn't have any other options. Because like you said, how am I going to pay for rent? How am I pay taxes? Like, what am I do? And that's why it's like, no, you got to try your best to go ahead and level up, so that again, when you can do those, high dollar projects, you can take some time off to do other creative endeavors, like not to just chill, but to say, okay, I have a little more freedom to learn a new technique, or to practice a new skill. But I'm sorry, if you broke, you can't do that. You just got to keep doing what can get food on the table. And so that's why, again, I wouldn't having more money allows you more options to get even better. And that's how I feel about it. If you take the right mindset, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Perfect answer, man. Perfect answer. I've found myself in that trap of the 9 to 5 or painting on commission or trying to paint. It's kind of like, dance. It's like the music's playing, dance, get into it, and it's
Exactly.
like, well, it does start to feel like a bit of a grind, and
Hmm.
so now I kind of look at that, and I've had my own ways of balancing that out. Part of it for me was setting up a creative space that would command that state of mind that would allow me to go, hey, I'm painting a picture. Forget about the payment side of it now. Just let's lock into
Hmm.
the creative aspect of it. How do you find that you got out of that frame of mind of painting under pressure and allowing
Hmm.
yourself to feel that, I'm assuming here, but feel that
Hmm.
creative fulfillment? Because you seem like somebody, again, you're dialed in, you're passionate about your subject matter, but
Hmm.
how do you, what kind of strategies do you have for having that not feel like a job?
Yeah, I think the best thing I did was make sure I'm still doing pleasure paintings, things that I want to paint. Because obviously we all have those projects like, hey, that's a cool picture. I wanna recreate that. So I make sure that I do want to do one of those every once in a while, to make sure that I'm doing art that I like. Because sometimes commissions can get a little boring. Like, it can, because it's not something you wanted to do. But again, and I still work on it sometimes now, but always, I think that's the biggest thing for me, is make sure I'm doing stuff I want to do too. That way there's a balance there, and I can kind of get recharged. Or if I know I have a pleasure painting coming up, I can still be happy while I'm painting the current one. It's like, okay, once we get this one over, I get to paint such and such, or I get to do that one that I know I'm gonna love, like that one that's gonna make me happy. I think the other thing is raising my prices. once I raised my prices, less. I think Maria talked about this in the book. In her book was that if you raise your prices, or like if you're overbooked, you raise your prices, you'll be less booked, but the money should just about equal out. And I was like, okay. I remember reading that from her, and I was like, okay. Then let's raise our prices. Like we have way too many commissions coming in right now that I can barely fulfill these orders, and it's killing me. Like it's burning me out. But yes, once I raise my prices, you get a few less commissions, but just more money on those commissions. So I think that those two things, raising your prices and making sure that you have a balanced lifestyle to maybe not just paint, but do other things that you like to do, even if it's just working out, writing, whatever it may be.
So I get asked this a lot over email messages, all that sort of stuff. People want to know, like, hey Andrew, how do I go about pricing my paintings?
Hmm.
And I, again, it's a good strategy. What Maria was talking about raising your prices. But let's say
Hmm.
somebody's just starting out, and they want to try and find that price point. They're jumping into the market, and they want to be able to anticipate or plan ahead for this type of dynamic that we're talking about here.
Hmm.
So how did you go about finding a price point for your work? And then as you're raising your prices, if you don't mind me asking, do you raise it by a percentage or to what? From what to what? As specific as you like, Caleb, or general as
Man,
you like.
that was definitely a tough part for me. I had an art teacher. His name's Eric Odell, and he always helped me with these kinds of questions. But honestly, just like we talked about, there is no hard and fast answers. I think one that I liked was doing the square footage and just multiplying that times 1 or 1.5, depending on your journey. Me personally, I just kind of looked at some of my contemporary artists or my peers who were doing similar work, and I was like, okay, he charged 400 for this. Well, he's got a lot more clientele than me. Maybe I could go a little cheaper. And I think most of my small paintings start off at like $200, and that worked okay. And then, like you said, or like I said, I had got to this point where I was doing way too many paintings, or even from a confidence standpoint. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm still struggling with that today because it's like not to be arrogant or anything, but you're like, Caleb, look at your resume, look at the people you've worked for. You've given a TED talk, like you're not the same Caleb you were in 2016. It's okay to raise your prices. Like it's okay to raise them to big boy prices because there's some times where I'm like, wow, this is a really good painting. Like if I was such and such, he would be charging $5,000 for this, and I'm charging this, and so that would be disappointing. So I guess that's something I'm still trying to fill out. Andrew, is you really kind of got to fill out the market and just really have the courage to say, okay, I think it's time for a price jump, or maybe it's a new year and it's like, let's just see. We put it out there, see if people will still bite at it. And every price increase I've ever done, it hasn't really stopped the show. So I guess I'm doing okay with that progression. But like I will say that when you don't raise your prices appropriately, you'll stay in the market you're basically asking for. Like if you're selling paintings for $200, you're going to keep attracting $200 clients. That's something I've learned. And when you start to raise them, not only does it kind of raise your confidence, but like now it's like if you expect $10,000 commissions, then that's a different mindset, and those are the people you'll attract. And that's been a legitimate thing for me. Is like when I was doing even $100 paintings early on, I had people asking, but when I raised my prices, it was a different kind of clientele. Then you get corporate people asking for things, universities asking for things, and I was like, okay. And of course, when your skill grows too, because again, if I know I try not to compare, but if I'm looking at an artist and let's come on, art, you know how it can be. Like I'm like I think I'm a little better than this guy, or like my work is just as good as this. Like how come I can't get $10,000? And those are other situations where I'm like, no, like I can raise my prices and let's see what happens. So I would, but for the somebody starting out, I would definitely tell them just get an idea for what other people in the industry are doing that are on their level, and maybe trying out the square inch one and see again. You just gotta see if people get it. If nobody's buying it, you need to lower your prices. If too many people buying it, raise them. And I think that was Maria also who gave me that idea.
Again, that's really good advice. For me, it was quite simple early on in my career because I had the help of agents. I had my first exhibition, and I had some guidance from my father and from
Hmm.
some key other people that were just kind of, they set the bar, they set the level, and they said, okay, look, what we want is we want a sellout show. We want some nice low prices, but not cheap, but
Hmm.
just something that is going to reflect the value of where you're at now and the value of the work where it is. and then let's come away with a lot of red spots on the wall, from solid work. And that strategy worked. And then after a while, once I started getting into galleries, I found that the agents were raising the prices to the point where, they were now saying, no, you're at this level. It's time to play this game. And some of those prices made me feel really, really uncomfortable. But what I realized is like what you're saying, from that jump up in price, now it opened me up to a whole new world. And I think, yeah, there's one side of it. I don't think I'm a greedy person, but I did feel like early on I wasn't able to handle the money coming in. I didn't really know what to do with it. But now that I'm older, I'm able to balance that a lot more. So as we were saying earlier, the motivations kind of change, and you start realizing, I think what it comes down to now for me personally is self-worth, just being okay with myself to the point where it's like, you know what, I deserve this. I've worked damn hard over my career to get to this point, and I know what I'm going to do with it as well. And I think that helps set up the flow, for myself personally.
Absolutely.
Anyway. But I love what you're saying. And look, again, I mean, that resource was fantastic. I love audiobooks. Maria Brophy wrote a fantastic one there.
She did such a good job, man.
Oh, man. And so
she wrote the book I wanted to write.
Yeah. Hey, man.
She wrote the book I was...
Look, you're going to write one. I'm writing one. I'm going to write one too. Because I think that there's room for everybody, man. I mean,
absolutely.
The world's a big place, and we all have a unique approach to this thing. And this is the thing I love about art is that there's no one way to do this. Look, let's just change gears here for a second. No, actually, before we do, while we're on the subject of audiobooks and resources, because I can tell, listen, man, you're right in that lane as well. Like I love that. What are some of the people that you listen to? Who's really inspiring you? Who are some of your favorite, titles and what are you reading? What's getting you going?
Like I said, I'm reading a lot of Stoic philosophy currently. So that's Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Ryan Holiday is a popular author out right now. He wrote Ego is the Enemy, The Obstacle is the Way, and he has a new book called Stillness is Key. Brene Brown, love her. This guy named Mark Manson, love him. Those are probably my favorite authors. And John Gordon is another guy. So these are all people that I think do really, they say more or less the same thing, but they just come from different standpoints that you can kind of really just figure out how to position yourself in life to, I don't mean to sound cliche, but to be happy or to really be comfortable in showing up in spite of everything that's going on. Because none of them says that your life's ever going to be perfect, but they're saying that you can live a great life and a happy life in spite of everything that's going on. I really appreciate everything they have to say. Like, yeah, Ryan Holiday, I like him a lot right now. And I read his book probably a year ago, and I kind of came back to some of his work, and I was like, yo, like, I need this. Like, this is perfect timing. So yeah, always these are people, like when they ask me who they should read, these are the people I'm coming out with first. Brene Brown, John Gordon, Ryan Holiday, Mark Manson, and Marcus Aurelius.
So that Ryan Holiday book, The Obstacle is the Way, I can vouch for that one, definitely. I thought that was phenomenal. Man. And also Mark Manson, he's the guy that wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was, as soon as I saw the title, just the cover of the book, I'm like, I need this book in my life. I need it.
Honestly,
right now.
That book probably shifted my life more than anything did, because that was the first time I'd ever been introduced to the idea of, I guess, suffering being unavoidable in life. And I guess too many people not feeling like they could escape that through material gain. Like that was how I kind of first understood how money, quote, doesn't buy happiness in and of itself. That was the first time I ever realized, oh, snap. And then what he basically said was not to not give a F about anything, but to figure out what matters to you and disregard everything else. Like, because you're going to suffer. What we talk about others. So trying to figure out what's worth suffering for. And that was the first time I'd ever been introduced to that. That book really changed. It was a big paradigm shift for me, because it just definitely made me reconsider things. If I could say there was a work that inspired my TED Talk, it would be that, and probably Obstacle is the Way. Both of them kind of shifted my mindset for life. And now when tough stuff comes up, it's not so much of a victim mentality. It's like, okay, what can we do with this opportunity here? Because in any obstacle is an opportunity to get better. I always have a joke that sit-ups hurt, but that's how you get abs. So there's really only one way through. Like you got to go through these things. We love to create artwork, but it's going to take you 10, 20 hours. So like it's time to just take it from a more positive mindset. And I'm just grateful for those authors. I love books so much. Like I'm really happy that books are a thing.
No, me too, man. Me too. So this TED talk, you had me captivated, man. Through, I mean, even though it was a short talk, about 20 minutes, it was great and really really inspiring. So before we get into the guts of what you were talking about in that talk, how does one get onto that circuit? That's
Oh
impressive,
man.
man. So tell us
So
about the
the
process.
so unless you're already famous, like, some of those people get invited. For me, really, it's just the application process. So you can go to the TED Talk website and find an event near you. And it's like, okay, let me try it. And I remember applying because I was like, I always wanted to give a TED Talk. I know that was a goal of mine, even from the jump. I want to give a TED Talk. And so I applied. And what's crazy, Andrew, is that was early this year. And I actually went through some things in my personal life. And I was actually clinically depressed at the time. But that was me trying my best to fight through that and to continue to show up for the things I love. And I was like, this is a goal. It's in a city that is like an hour from where I lived at the time. And it's like, we got to try. And then they said, okay, we want to bring you in for an interview. And I was like, or a pitch rather. And I'm like, oh God. And even then, same thing. I'm still battling that depression. And I'm at the interview. Just the crazy thing, they say that when you're depressed, you can't remember a lot. And I honestly cannot remember much of that process, but it still went well. And I was able to get a chance to speak. And I remember it was one of those moments where it's like, oh man, like it's going to be okay. Like we going to work it out. And by the time I actually gave the talk, I was in a much better headspace. But yeah, you do the application, they bring you in for an interview. And then if you get accepted, then there's a process where you got to go to several different practices and then a dress rehearsal before the talk. And I actually had an opportunity after we did a couple rehearsals was that they said I was going to open up the show. So I ended up going first, which was nerve wracking, but at the same time, it was a big honor. And that was one of the coolest things in my life. Cause again, it's like really a lifetime goal kind of fulfilled. And now it's like, okay, I want to get on the big TED stage. Like I want to go out to Cali and do the real big one. And that's what we're just going to keep working. And I might try to apply for another one just to kind of keep building the resume. Because I'm telling you that to say you've given a TED talk, that's a big deal, man. Like people love it. Like that people tease me when they see me like, oh, it's Mr. TED Talk. I'm like, oh, stop. Like it makes me so like nervous at times because they mess with me because I didn't think it was that big a deal, but some people do. Like I was happy to have done it, but I didn't like I got friends who call me famous and I'm like, all right, stop. Like I just gave a talk. Like I just fulfilled a dream that was just for me. I didn't want the fame. It was just something I wanted to do because I watch TED Talks all the time. I was like, I want to give a TED Talk. And so no, that whole process was one of the highlights, probably the highlight of my year, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome, dude. Again, I mean, okay, I'll admit it here. I've always wanted to give one too.
No,
I've always
man.
because I've been. I mean, I'm a big fan of TED Talks, and I've watched some. You know, the one I really love, and I mentioned his name earlier as well. But Tony Robbins, I still love that talk that he gave. And just his command of just public speaking and holding that
Absolutely.
space, and then the message he delivered, he just had them right in the palm of his hand, and watching that, just
Yeah.
going, wow, how inspiring is that? But then coming up against myself, just kind of going, what the heck would I talk about? But
Man, they
it
they
seemed
their
cool.
coaches, the coaches that are over the event, they're second to none. Like I became a better speaker in that 2 month process than I've ever been in my life. Like they show you how to tell a story. And I think for anyone that's wanting to do the public speaking thing, that's the main thing is one, talk about one thing. That's where a lot of people get off topic in their talks. Talk about one thing and two, tell stories. Those are the two most important things I think because storytelling makes it fun. It makes it engaging. Because if you just if nobody tells stories, it's just a lecture. I've noticed that about people who write books too. People who tell stories in their books, the books are always a lot more engaging. And if they don't have stories, it's real academic and just like, goodness, like y'all might be saying a lot of good things, but I'm bored to death. But so just tell stories, Andrew. Like, and that's what they're gonna tell you too. Tell stories and stay on topic.
That's a real struggle for me. Staying on topic, I'm always distracted, and my brain's going 100 million miles an hour, and I'm on to the next thing. So in the actual guts of your talk, you're talking about this thing that's a huge topic. I mean, and you're talking about your own struggles as well, with mental health, and I appreciate you being so open with me about that. I mean, because
Absolutely.
that's huge, man. That's a huge deal, and I know that there's going to be a lot of people listening to this now, who are going through similar struggles. So
Absolutely.
in the essence of what you were talking about on stage, this thing about um, suffering and these obstacles and misfortune, that's being the reality of our existence. How do you
Absolutely.
keep your chin up and put that in your stride and just keep going?
It's just it's just a perspective shift. And that was the whole point of the TED talk is telling people that there is an opportunity inside your struggle. And I don't even mean to be like insensitive to people's different struggles because obviously we have what I went through may be really small compared to what somebody else may have gone through. But there's an opportunity in every single struggle. Um, like there's lessons to be learned. And I think if I had not gone through what I went through, I wouldn't have learned a lot of things. I wouldn't have wanted to figure out how like it revealed a lot about me because then you realize, okay, maybe I'm not as tough as I thought I was. And then it's like, okay, so how can I get better now? I think there's an opportunity in every obstacle. Even some like if a family member dies, like there's something it teaches you to be grateful. Like I think that's one of the more extreme examples. Like you learn to be grateful or to make the most of your time. There's an opportunity in every obstacle. It's really just a perspective shift. Now it's not to avoid the fact that you're sad. Like if you're depressed, like you have to go through that gamut of emotions, but you have to understand that on the other side of this, and that was something I was grateful to have understood because of the reading I did, was that when everything kind of just fell apart, it was like I know that on the other side of this, I can be better if I choose to look at it that way. And it wasn't great every day. A lot of days I didn't do good, or a lot of days I didn't show up like I need to. I didn't. I did say this in the talk, but like there was like a couple of weeks, few weeks, Andrew, where I didn't even work. Like I just couldn't show up to the easel and get to work. And the old me, like I was a real rah rah motivational guy. I would have been like, if I'd have seen somebody depressed, I probably would have been like, "What's wrong with you? Like life is not that bad. Get back up to the easel. Like what's wrong with you?" And so again, when I was in that moment, and I'm like, okay, I get it now. I get what it feels like to not have energy, to not feel like I know what it feels like to be depressed now. And that made me a better teacher. That made me a better friend. So that now when I'm giving talks, I can come from a place of it's okay for you to be down and out. That's okay. And you're gonna mess up, but you just gotta keep showing up. That's all. It could take you years to get over what you went through. I'm not gonna tell you how long it gotta take for you to get over something, but just keep showing up because it will get better if you choose to look at it that way. I think it's just the perspective shift. Um, and going back to even the new things I've been looking about, it's about just controlling the things you can control, suffering for stuff that you care about, and letting the rest of it go. And in most cases, again, the only thing you can really control is how you respond. Things are just things. Like everything that happens is objective. The meaning you prescribe to these things is what hurts you or what makes you happy. So it's like you can choose for like it's really your perception that has made this thing bad. And you can obviously choose how to respond to certain things. Again, no matter how bad it is, you can respond how to feel or not. I don't want to say how to feel, but how you're going to act because you can be in pain and still say, I'm going to turn in this TED talk application come hell or high water because that's about me. That's something I need to do for me. So same thing, man. Just again, just to find that opportunity in every obstacle is very important. That's the perspective shift you need when you're going through something like that.
I, man, I appreciate that so much. Can I reflect on that with a little bit of a story? It's just
Absolutely.
something as you were saying that, something came to mind because I've been so lucky. I've been so blessed in my career.
Hmm.
And I had a lot of highs, a lot of lows, but I'm kind of the guy. Not many people would know about this, but I'm kind of the guy that had it all, made it big within a limited, very small circle within the Western Australian market. I was doing great in
Hmm.
my mid 20s. I mean, I hadn't known of anybody else that was doing that well, And so it really all came crashing down spectacularly for me, and I lost it all. My lowest point was living in a shed. Not many
Hmm.
people know about this, I'm sharing it now. But I was literally living in a shed. It was illegal for me to be living there. Rachel and I both lived there, so I'm married to the woman of my dreams, who
Hmm.
is sticking with me through this. And here I am. My paintings are expensive, but I couldn't sell any of them at this time. The market was down. There were all sorts of awful things going, and what had happened is we had an engineering fabrication place across the road in this shed complex. So I had other units, factory units and things that were next to me. We had an
Hmm.
industrial laundry, engineering fabrication place, and somebody who was making breakfast cereal in the unit over. And it was
Hmm.
noisy, it was dirty, it was dusty, there was smoke and fumes and all sorts. And people probably wouldn't realize this, but when we were down and out, I was saying to Rachel, I think I want to give YouTube a shot. And she's like,
Hmm.
what? I said, I think I can make this work. And that was a year I started my YouTube channel.
Hmm.
And since actually doing that, by not staying down and out, by focusing on hey, this is enormous adversity right now. This is like a huge issue. This is a problem. We're in a crisis now. Like, this is now, for me, that was rock bottom. And I know other people's version
Hmm.
of rock bottom will be different, but like, no money, broken, no prospect of turning this thing around, and massive family upheaval and all sorts of things going on. Turning around and going, I'm going to start this YouTube channel. And things since then have picked up both on the art front, but also on the teaching front. It's been like, life now is completely different. Completely different.
Hmm.
Within the space of just a few short years, bam, by just looking at that situation and going, where's the opportunity in this? Okay,
Absolutely.
I can look up, so I can get up. I'm going to get up. So where's the opportunity? And
Hmm.
I hope, I hope people don't mind me sharing that story, but that's something that I always think about. I'm so grateful for this point I'm in now, because I know it wasn't very long ago that I was there. So where are we going to go from here?
Hmm.
And to completely different life, completely different lifestyle now in just a short amount of time. Some people are gonna think about that, going, okay, yeah, sure, crisis and opportunity. Where can I see the opportunity? And people might even be offended by that notion of going, oh,
Absolutely.
okay, hey, easy for you to say, that
Hmm.
my adversity right now, my struggle right now, there's a seed of an opportunity. But I personally feel that. I feel that. And a lot of the people that I subscribe to and listen to and consume their material, they all say that there's this
Hmm.
balancing force. And I love what you said just then about, it's not necessarily about what happened, but it's about the meaning you ascribe to what happened.
Hmm.
So for you, when you're going through your struggles and things, you're like, I love that meaning that you're going, hey, this is going to make me a deeper person. This is going to make me more of a person, so I can turn
Hmm.
around and help somebody else. Because
Absolutely.
there's one thing that came across so clearly to me, Caleb, in your TED talk, was you could feel, that passion and that depth in what you were saying. And I'm
Hmm.
sure it was nerve wracking. There was all that stuff. It was
Yeah.
flash suit, by the way. Man, you look sharp on that stage. That was great. But but you could feel that was, you were coming from a genuine place.
Because it was real. And she wanted, I actually, the last portion of the speech that actually talked about my personal journey wasn't in my original talk. Um, I didn't unveil that until the last rehearsal because I think I had a friend who's like, yeah, man, it's you talking about it anyway. So you might as well bring up the fact that you kind of have gone through a little bit of this struggle in this year alone. So it's like, okay, there's something I gotta do because somebody might see this and say, dang, okay, maybe I can do it. Like he's obviously in pain. Maybe I can, figure it out. And I think I'm not telling anyone to like get up off the ground now. I'm just saying don't stay there forever. Again, if it takes you a while, that's your journey. I'm not going, even if you don't believe me right now, that's fine. But I feel like you kind of have two choices. You can choose to say, this is my life forever. It's just gonna be garbage forever. Or you can choose to be optimistic about it. And so I'm like, if you're gonna choose something, why not choose optimism? I mean, if you're pessimistic, it can't get no worse. So it's like, why not choose the more positive option if you got a choice either way? And if you're wrong about it, you can't get no worse. If you already at rock bottom, and it's like, what else you got to lose? So I agree with you. I hope that it don't sound insensitive, but that's what the old masters, the Stoics, the philosophers, they're saying the same thing. Like it's just like, it can be whatever you want it to be. Because like a lot of things, I don't want to say most things, but a lot of things that some of us go through in the grand scheme of things won't be as relevant in 5 years. We go through certain trauma, like we go through certain things, and in the moment they seem like the end of the world. But in truth, in 5 years we're gonna look back and be like, dang, I was tripping out about that. But I will say that I wouldn't change a single thing about what I went through this year, because I think that it's turned me into who I am. It made me who I am. So like same thing. I'm looking at it from a positive standpoint where it's like every late night, every tear you cry, every heartbreak was like, okay, I'm better for that now, and because that situation helped me grow. Like I'm just stronger because of it. Like I'm a better person. Like I wouldn't change a thing, Andrew. As much as it sucked, like I'm glad that we're on the other side of it now. But I wouldn't change a thing about it.
I want to go back a little bit here, back to this idea of you writing the book, because
Uh,
I personally I'm excited to read it. I'm excited
oh
to
man,
learn more from you, because I know I'm going to learn a lot from you in terms of the mindset, because the mental side of things is still, I don't have a label or a condition or anything that I've
mm.
had checked out. I probably would if I went to go and get some professional opinion on it, but I do struggle with it still to this day. So I think as creatives, there's a lot of creatives out there that I know of that struggle with some sort of mental health issue, or just some sort of creative issue, whether it's just angst, despair, frustration, fear, lack of confidence, just being terribly introverted, just
Mm-hmm.
crippling shyness, all these things that get in our way.
Yeah.
Share with me some of the story, some of the strategies, if you will, or some of the things that you would love to talk about in this book, and what are some of the ideas? I'd love to hear more, for instance, about
Oh
stoicism,
man.
because I'm very new to stoicism. Dabbled with it a little bit, but I am fascinated by that.
Oh man. So I'm gonna try to release a book early 2020. I've already kind of started writing, but I've never written a book before, so I don't necessarily know how long it's gonna take to make that happen. But the plan is early 2020. And I always have this little mantra that I say with my friends. It's like, get your mind right, which is like, you better get your mind right for whatever it is you about to do. Because mentally, especially when it comes like when he's playing football, if you about to play or go up against a really formidable foe, it's like, hey, you better get your mind right, because they're not playing. Like they're really good. So you better get your mind right. And that's been a big thing for me. And once I actually went through my own struggle, it was like, okay, now I'm ready to write whatever this book I've been trying to write, which is trying to give people the mental, again, just give them some strategies in this fight, because the fight is going to happen. And I think that's a major premise that I will drive home, is that everybody's going through something. Everybody's heartbroken. It's either large or small. At some point in your life, you were heartbroken. Like even if it was something really small, as maybe your dad didn't affirm you the way you wanted to be affirmed when you were 5, it taught you a lesson, because all those things that you talked about, fear, angst, shame, they're not real. You learn those. Like you learn that as a part of your domestication when you're growing up. And that's how you learn them, through those different heartbreaks. You got turned down for prom in high school, or had a bad breakup. These things can shift how you feel about the world, but they're all lies. So it's like going back to this is where I say, like, that's the point where going to see a mental health professional is, I would say, is vital, because again, you can figure out, a lot of people don't even know that they're heartbroken. That's the verbiage I'm using. It's like a lot of people don't even know that they have baggage going back to when they were 4 years old. But a mental health professional can help. That's what I actually majored in college, was psychology. And so I know that a therapist can actually just guide you to that place to say, dang, I didn't even know that getting turned down for prom in 11th grade affected me like that. And nowadays it's making you scared to put yourself out there because you don't want to feel that rejection. And what I found again is that everybody has that. Whether, even if they're well adjusted, they still have it a little bit. I would say that 90% of people have not dealt with that heartbreak. And I'd say maybe 10% of people have. These are really well-adjusted people. I say the best people in the world, like people who really have the mental clarity, even people who are madly successful. Me personally, I can see it from a mile away based on just social media antics that, dang, you still ain't dealt with whatever that is. And I hate it for you because you have it all and you still can't enjoy it. And that's the basic premise, is that if you never address that heartbreak, the things that you've been through, you're never going to be able to enjoy life. That's why money's not going to do it. A relationship, darn sure ain't going to be able to do it. Any material success or anything, even your involvement with certain organizations, is not going to make you happy. It's always going to be like a cloud hanging over everything you want in life because you ain't dealt with it. And so that's going to be one of the basic premises. And then just giving people the strategies to figure out how, like Stoics, they believe that the height of human existence is based almost self-discipline, adhering to your moral code. And you get to decide what that moral code is. Like some people can get it from the Bible, their religion, they can get it from, wherever they want to. That part is less important. You can figure that out on your own. Like that's a journey in and of itself. But the Stoics believe that virtue in itself is how you're happy. The process is what makes you happy. How you do something is way more important than the output. And that's something I've really got behind lately because I'm like, they're right. Because at the end of the day, too many people feel powerless and hopeless because they put their hope in things they cannot control. Even like relationships, they put their hope in the other person making them happy. And although we want to choose good partners, we can't really control what they do. You work really hard at a job because you want the promotion, but you can't always control whether you're going to get the promotion or you could die tomorrow. And so the thing is, we render ourselves powerless because, again, we're always in the rat race trying to control things we can't control. We think if we get more money, we're going to have more control. We get this promotion, we're going to have more control. But the truth is, most things in life we just cannot control. And the only thing we do have control over is ourselves and how we approach life, and that we show up fully and love as hard as we can. That's the best that we can honestly hope to do. And so those are one of the things, like I'm still trying to do my research and making sure that I give people the strategies. The main thing is, I guess, trying to help people develop their moral code as they see fit. Because again, I remember my teacher in school once told me, she says, when you look at atheists and maybe really religious people, they say the most unhappy people are the people in the middle, the people who don't know where they stand, which means if an atheist is just sure, if they just say, I know where I stand on certain things, I know what my moral code, I know what I'm about, that I know my identity. And the same thing, when a religious person knows who they are, they're going to be happy. And that's why it's like, even if you don't get it right, just keep showing up for you the best that you know how. And if your profession, if you're a painter today, just keep showing up. And if at some point it's still not fulfilling, just keep learning yourself. And eventually I think you'll come into a place where it's like, okay, this is who I am. And you're always going to change over time. But for the most part, the most important thing is just adhering to keeping the main thing with what you know now. And I'm so excited to write this book, Andrew, because I feel like it's going to help a lot of people. And I'm writing to myself. Like I've been in that place, and I've always got to remind myself, even when you get in those modes where it's like, dang, why is this not happening? It's like, Caleb, you can't control that. All you can do, whether you like that outcome or not, it's just inefficient to sit there and like really sit on that when you can't control it. Like, only thing you can honestly control right now is how you approach your business, how you approach your relationship. That's all you can do for right now. And man, Andrew, that's even been in like the last month that I've been really got into the stoicism. I'm like, oh, this is it. Like, this is my thing here. Like, this is what I've been waiting for. And I'm just grateful, man. So hopefully early 2020 is going to be a party, man.
We need a book like that in this space. I mean, there's a few people doing mindset and motivation and inspiration for artists. And I don't mean to pigeonhole you by saying that, but I think that it's something that we desperately need, because I think maybe as artists as well, we get caught in our own head. Maybe we don't look outside for those cues and those inspiring stories and that way to kind of be able to look at ourselves objectively and assess the situation. And I really feel like a book like the one you're going to write is going to be so needed in this space. I can't wait to read it. I can't wait to hear more about your progress with it. I think it's going to be awesome, man. I think it's going to be absolutely awesome.
I appreciate that, man.
Because I just, Again, I mean, maybe just from a selfish point of view, I just really want to read it. I come face to face with that so much, and have done. Will probably continue to do so on this journey of struggling with that, struggling with the things that I'm trying to control, and
Hmm.
realizing it ain't about that. The only That's why I love what you just said. The only thing I can control is my approach, is the way
Hmm.
I come at it. It's the way that I kind of choose the meaning I choose to derive from any situation. But the other thing that I think is really important that I would like to just kind of insert into this, and maybe we could talk about this a little bit, is also the identity that I choose to accept for myself. Because this is
Hmm.
the other thing. Again, talking about Tony Robbins, huge fanboy right here of that guy. But I think the thing that he said that absolutely fundamentally changed my life is just hearing those words. You want to change your life, you got to change your standards. You got to raise your standards. And so that to me is a fundamental change in my identity of who I am and what I'm willing to accept. But more than
Yeah.
anything, it's not the external environment so much, it's the internal environment of going, what is my identity? What are my standards? And what am I going to accept for myself, and in terms of how, again, how I approach a particular thing. What is my moral compass? Who am
Hmm.
I? And I don't know, I think maybe artists could use, not I'm not saying a wholesale change. I'm sure there's a lot of people who've got that plugged in really well, but I think we need to be talking about this anyway.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think another important part is like it's got to be on your own consideration. Like it has to be something that you chose. Because again, if other people are establishing who you are, ultimately it's not going to work. Like that's why even again when you choose your moral code, it has to be something that you care about. It can't be something. Of course, you can listen to other people, but if it's not something you truly care about, it's not going to work and it's not going to make you happy. So I think that's really important.
This is completely jumping tracks now a little bit, and
Hmm.
but I do want to make sure we touch on it briefly, because again, I think what you're doing, from the business side of things, and the subject matter side of things, the
Hmm.
product that you're producing is so slick. It's awesome. Your work is great. What can you run me through the process of how you create one of these pieces, and tell me a little bit more about the technical aspect of the paintings you're
Yeah.
producing?
I definitely took a lot of things from you, especially the layering approach that you do, especially when you start with the blocking and then modeling and then the details. That's how I try to approach it also. So I try to just put layers down. The acrylic paint doesn't always come through as opaque. I'm not really sure how oils work, but like the acrylic takes a while, so I definitely have to put a lot of different layers. And I think the final, especially when it comes to like shading and different things like that, is almost stippling, like just little dots that basically create the illusion of, a gradient change. And so those are one of the things I've developed over time. The splatter is a technique of mine because I always tell myself I never necessarily want to be a realism painter because I felt like I was never gonna be as good as some of the super realistic people. So like I'm not gonna try. Like I'm okay with that. And so at first it was just trying to balance abstract with realism, just trying to find a different like the decent balance. And now I mean, the paintings just got better. I didn't even expect them to be as real as they look now. And so it's like, okay, now I'm something. I'm a portrait painter. That look semi-real and still got a little flair in it, like it's real expressive. So that's my style, and I think people recognize it. So even from a branding standpoint, it works. But just layering, you know how acrylics work, I'm sure. Just layering and trying to do my best with blending the colors as yeah.
So when you're choosing your subject matter, and
Hmm.
you're I can see that you're working from photographs, right?
Yeah.
What is it in the photograph or in your reference material that grabs you? What are you looking for
Yeah.
when you're like, oh man, I got to paint that?
I will say dynamic lighting, especially big contrast. Like there's a picture of Obama I want to paint that is like might be the coolest photograph I've ever seen. I was like, man, this is beautiful. Or even when it comes to just good photography and stuff that really inspires me. And especially I'll definitely say the biggest contrast because I don't think non-artsy people get that, but people inherently know what a good picture is. Like they're like, dang, that's a really cool picture. So I've noticed that when my pictures are the most dramatic, those are the ones people lose their minds over. I get a lot of likes. The ones where it goes from really dark or there's a heavy contrast, I'm like, people go crazy. And the other thing, I guess, when it comes to sports in general, the subject matter is the people too. Like if there's certain icons in the sport, try to go with that. Dramatic plays or that everybody kind of remembers. Like I remember when that happened. Those are really, but mainly the main thing I would say is just the pure aesthetic of the picture. If it's a really cool photograph, I'm going to want to paint it.
So are you using like stock images? Do you take your own photographs when you can? I mean, where do you find that inspiration? I guess what I'd like to ask as well is how do you get around, because I get a few people asking me this, is like how do you get around copyright? I use a lot of my own
Yeah.
source material. In fact, that's all I use is my own source material. And if I can't find it, I make it up. I
Hmm.
draw it, I paint it, I do it digitally. But for
Yeah.
you, I imagine if you're going to go after an iconic play, you got to use
Yeah.
something that's published. So how do you stay out of
So
trouble that way?
now this was actually a strategy I learned when I was really young. There's this artist that I'm actually friends with now, and I'm kind of like you, somebody I really looked up to and became friends with. And I remember when I used to read his work, he would say that if he only had an option of one picture, he would use several different references to try to create something to kind of. But then I also learned that copyright laws can be real like iffy. So if you change one aspect of it, you kind of have some rights of your own because it's like it's not your picture. At the end of the day, it's a painting, and it can't look exactly like your photograph. And so there's still some slippery waters there, and I get that. But for the most part, I don't know. I haven't run into that issue yet, but I was pretty confident that as long as you change something about it, then you kind of have some legal ground there. And I could be wrong. And if anybody's watching this, send me a DM and let me know if that is flawed thinking because I don't want to get sued and have to pay them money. So please let me know if that's wrong. But that's the assumption I've been operating on that if I change something, it's not their photograph anymore.
That's yeah. Maybe that's something we need to look into a little bit closer. But that you know what? To be honest, that's my understanding too. I think I heard somewhere that it needed to be 25% change, and then
Yeah.
it could be something else. But I mean, here we are. We're talking about artistic expression. You're creating a unique product. It's not a photograph. You use the photograph to inspire a painting, and like yeah, you're changing maybe colors, lighting, background aspects like that. Yeah, the photograph might be the initial seed of the idea. I had,
Mhm.
you know what? I had somebody get in touch with me, and they sent me a rather curt email, like a really sternly worded email, saying because I did a tribute to Waterhouse.
Mhm.
Waterhouse's famous Soul of the Rose painting of the beautiful woman in the rose garden grabbing the rose and smelling it. And
Mhm.
I wanted to recreate that scenario. And so when she saw it, she didn't read any of the text, didn't read any of the description, just said,
Mhm.
sent me the link, and then said, you're going to be in breach of copyright here. And I know these people that hold the copyright. I'm like, what? Get out of town. And like she had some connection to somebody who had the license for the prints on this thing. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
get out of here, man. And so when I looked it up, I was like, well, it's the artist's life plus 100 years. And I could print his picture to make iPhone covers, and I could go into production with iPhone covers, because it's been his
Uh-huh.
life plus 100 years. That's kind of the stipulation on reproducing somebody else's painting. But a photograph, I think, if you're using that as your basis for your own original expression, it might
Mhm.
be slightly different. I don't know. Maybe it's something that we could get some feedback on. But
Exactly. Listeners, help us.
well, look, it's super inspiring work. You're an inspiring guy, Caleb. I've got a heck of a lot out of this conversation. I'm looking forward to seeing where you go, and I'm going to be following
Mhm.
really closely, especially
I
with the
appreciate
book
it,
the book
Andrew.
coming out. Because we need people like you in the space. I'm not just saying that because for me, again, my own selfish reasons, I want to read this book. I want to devour its content. I want to learn, what you have to say because I know personally I could use that. So besides the book. What's next for you? Where are you going? And what are some of the things that you're looking forward to over the next couple of years?
Absolutely. I have a couple of, I guess, celebrity type commissions coming up in probably before this year is out that I'm really excited about. I really would just plan to go on the road a little more with the talking thing. Maybe could put together some seminars or things of that such, go to different cities and kind of again give people the ammo to combat the things they're going to go through in life and in their different professions, especially for artists. And that's probably the outcome at, probably try to get the artists out. We've led some workshops like that, and I would like to do more of that. So those are the kind of things we have coming up. Really, the speaking portion is really important to me right now, because I hate to see that people just don't, a lot of people don't have the mental just mindset to get through some of these things, that I want to just try to help prepare them. I don't want to do the work for them, but I just want to give them the proper ammo in this fight.
So, Caleb, where can people find you online? Where can they connect with you, see some of your work?
Oh, man. CalebsCanvas.com. That's CalebsCanvas.com. That is my website. Instagram handle is Caleb's Canvas, and I believe my Twitter is also Caleb's Canvas, but I think it has an underscore between Caleb's and Canvas. They can find me on those different platforms, and I think my social media is linked up to my website too. I think there might be a Facebook page, but I'm not sure if it's called Caleb's Canvas. Facebook wouldn't let me change it, so it is what it is. But Instagram is probably the best place to find out what I have going on, news. The TED Talk is obviously on the TED Talk website and YouTube. It's called The Triumphant Gift of Adversity. If you guys want to check out that TED Talk, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, man, that's me.
Well, Caleb, I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for being on The Creative Endeavor.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Now, I really hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Creative Endeavor podcast, and a huge thank you to Caleb Brown for joining me. Now, if you want to see more of Caleb's work, then make sure you find him on Instagram and on his website, and those links are in the description down below. Now, of course, as always, if you enjoyed this episode and you want to see more episodes of The Creative Endeavor, then please click that like button for me and leave me a comment down below. As always, you can find me on social media. That's in the description down below as well. But most important, make sure you subscribe through my website at andrewtischler.com. Simply enter your name and your email address. It's free to do so, and I'm in touch with my subscribers regularly. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll see you again soon.